This is one of the world's oldest alphabets, and was used primarily by the Celtic people in Iberia, which is now Spain and Portugal. It later on was moved to the British Isles and was used by the Gaelic people. But somebody brought it over here to North America before it got to Scotland. It doesn't have any vowels, so that's what most of the writing is. It resembles a barcode. But any tongue or language could use this. So that's mainly what's on the rock. But one of the most important writings that we have on the rock is this right here. That's a monogram, a Christian monogram, and it's in it's in Greek with one very important letter from the 1st century Hebrew alphabet. This is one of the rarest alphabets that there is, because the style of the Hebrew letter changed at the beginning of the 1st century, and by the 70s, 70 AD, Jerusalem was destroyed, and so they had to give these letters a different look. And we can date that monogram as the 1st century. And what it says is Christ, the rock, the cornerstone of the temple. And the temple being the spiritual king. I'll circulate some of these papers around. Y'all can glance at them and pass them on to somebody else to look at. This is an example of the monogram. It was used quite a bit. The example I've got here is the Greek word for fish, which is eclipse. And these initial letters, eclipse, means Jesus Christ, God's Son, our Savior. You can pass these around after you look at them. This is a picture of that rock, what's on the rock there. I don't have time to go into it, but I'm just going to have to hit the high spots. I've got all the verification. I show here the Greek and the 1st century Hebrew and all the documentation that goes to prove the authenticity of this writing. Now this means that this was put here in the 1st century. It was either one of the apostles or somebody in the apostolic community. Somebody that wrote this is somebody that we read about in the Bible. We don't know what name to put on this. But this person was a Hellenist. They were educated in Hebrew and Greek. Now the 12 apostles were not educated in that realm, but Paul and his companions were Hellenists. They were educated in Greek and Latin. So this This is very unique, very valuable. Now, the rock fell from eclipse on I-6, or not I-66, Route 66. Right across the river is a cave. And in that cave you have another Christian inscription. And it's got a letter of that same first century alphabet. It's called an initialism. And this is a sigma, iota, upsilon, a theta, and pi. And this is a Greek letter, the het. And that translates is the Savior, Jesus, Son of God the Father, who lives. I don't know of another petroglyph in North America that features these two important inscriptions. Now, another inscription that we have, this is Tiffany Numidian. This is a combination of Norse Tiffany and North African Numidian. And it's on that rock in the park. Now, a friend of mine found an inscription in Jackson County written on this stone here. And this is in the same alphabet that's found on our stone in the park. And what it says here is that the sun is eclipsed, totally obscured. They were noting an eclipse, total eclipse of the sun. So what they did, they took the latitude and longitude of that side and put it into a computer at Louisiana Mountain Society. And they found out that that total eclipse occurred April the 23rd, 255 AD. And that was probably the same people who carved on this stone. And I've got, if you want to look at it afterwards, a copy of the Tiffany Numidian alphabet. All my translations are based upon old alphabets that was extinct 1,000 years or more before Columbus came over here. And what's interesting about the Tiffany Numidian, it was in use, started in 300 BC, and it ceased to be used in 300 AD. So it was carved on our stone here in 255 AD, right in the height of the Numidian culture. And I'll circulate this here for y'all to look at. This is a picture of what's called the world tree, Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil was a mythological tree. And according to mythology, Hogan sacrificed himself to himself on this world tree in order to receive the runes, which was a magical alphabet. It could be used, to write a letter or a history, but it was also mainly used as charms. And the Germanic people would carve these runes on their swords and their shields. And so we have Germanic runes carved on this rock. And they were carved by rune masters who would stain them with their own blood and then say a charm or a verse on them to give them power. So on that rock in the park shows the very beginnings of the mythological beginning of the Germanic runes. And somebody, probably of Anglo-Saxons, were the ones who carved that. I'm sorry that I didn't have a lot more material to pass around to everybody, but right here's some information about Yggdrasil. And also, another strange looking inscription. That we have over there. I wish I had enough so that everybody could look at them at the same time.
Now, is that on the rock over here?
That's on the rock in the park. And we find out, I can show you this afterwards, after you've got time, if you want to look at this alphabet. You can find these letters on the South Iberia. It was a tribe from Iberia, which is modern day Spain. And we have the exact letters on that stone that we find in this alphabet. So we've been able to prove these things. Not just guesswork. Now, another very interesting thing we've got is this pentagram. I showed this to the man that was head of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Kentucky, Latham Duffield. And he said this is absolutely not part of the Indian culture. That the pentagram had its origin in the whole world. And the pentagram has got certain angles in it that was used to form what's called the golden mean, which is a geometrical rule that was used in building the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And it's used in buildings, it's used in art. Make a long story short, the golden mean, our bodies are made according to the golden mean, which is 1.6. That means that this joint right here is 1.6 greater than this joint. And this joint is 1.6 greater than this one. It's made with the bones of the leg. And the whole human body has been constructed using the golden mean. And inside of the pentagram is a pentagon. And that's what I think the Department of Defense named their building is the Pentagon. Now this is an Hogan inscription called a rebus. These Hogan letters could be put together to form a picture of what they were talking about. In this case here, it's in the form of a human hand. And this is Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic. And what it says is the right hand of God. They didn't have consonants. I mean, didn't have vowels. But they had for instance, when you had a cross, it represented IA. And what they did, instead of using the cross like this, they turned it up and made a Christian cross. Diphthong, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, this shows the first converts to Christianity, and they use Hogan. And Hogan was used before Latin ever came to the British Isles. So that right hand of God was written by somebody from Scotland sometime in the early, probably 1st, 2nd, or 3rd century. And here's another inscription in Hogan. It's found on the rock. And it does the same thing. It takes that figure that looks like an X, and turns it up to make a Christian cross out of it. And what it says is exalted Lord. He, Baal. Now the word Baal, we find it in the Bible in the Phoenician B-A-A-L, and the Gaelic is B-E-L. And it simply means Lord. And Baal was the god of light, or the sun god. And what these people are saying here, as Christians, using the cross, that Jesus is the sun god. He's the god of light. That's on their stone in the park. Probably 1,500 years old or older. And here's probably the oldest inscription that we have on the stone. And this goes to the late Bronze Age. This is about 800 years before the time of Christ. And you'll have to tell me when that time gets up.
Got 10 till, another 3 minutes.
Okay. We could go right on and on and on.
I know you should probably go 2 hours easy.
This inscription is the late Bronze Age, about 800 BC, and it was written during the Lydian dynasty of Egypt. And it's a monogram with 3 different languages, which is South Semitic. That's what's used in East Africa and in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. And the other one is Libyan, Old Libyan. And the other is called Punic Iberian. That means the Phoenicians and the people that had this big trading center at Carthage, they controlled what's now Spain up until 200 BC. Then the Romans took it over. So Punic Iberian, you're looking at from 800 to 200 BC. Now these are the ones that I've been able to translate. And there's a lot of Hogan that I can't translate. I don't know if anybody can. But we have a treasure here. And it's important to realize that that's the only petroglyph in America that has any protection whatsoever. Everything is open to vandalism or whatever anybody wants to do with it. So you all have got a sacred trust. You've got a rock here that's amazing. You could go to North Africa, Nile Delta, to Spain, and the British Isles, and you would find these writings. But who would think that you could find them on one stone in North America? That's what we have.